The average person lives their entire life without ever discovering what makes them truly come alive. Think about that for a moment. Entire lifetime spent in quiet resignation, accepting okay as if it were some badge of honor. But let me tell you something that might change everything for you today. Okay is the enemy of greatness. Okay is the silent killer of dreams. I want to ask you a question, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you settling for okay in your life right now? Are you telling yourself that things are fine, that you're getting by, that it could be worse? Because if you are, you've already lost the most important battle you'll ever fight. The battle against mediocrity. Here's the raw truth. Mediocrity will never wake you up at 5 a.m. burning with purpose. Mediocrity will never push you to turn off the television and pick up a book that changes your thinking. Mediocrity will never inspire you to make that call, take that risk, or have that difficult conversation that transforms everything. No one ever built a legacy on okay. Every day I meet people who tell me they want more. They say it with their words but contradict it with their actions. They say they want financial freedom but won't invest in themselves. They say they want deeper relationships but won't do the inner work. They say they want help but won't make the daily decisions that create it. What about you? What disconnect exists between what you say you want and what you're actually willing to do about it? Most people spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning their lives. They spend more energy researching their next phone purchase than researching how to develop their mind. They know more about their favorite TV characters than they do about their own potential. This isn't a lecture. This is an invitation to wake up. The uncomfortable truth is that we live in a world that profits from your okayness. Average consumers make predictable choices. Average workers don't demand too much. Average dreamers eventually compromise. The system isn't designed to elevate you. It's designed to contain you. But here's what the architects of average don't want you to know. You already possess everything you need to break free. Everything. Right now, regardless of your circumstances, you have the capacity to make one decision that sets a new trajectory. Let me share something with you that changed my life. I used to believe that motivation was the key to change. I thought if I could just feel motivated enough, long enough, I'd transform my life. But I was wrong, dead wrong. Motivation is fickle. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation is not your savior. What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary isn't motivation. It's discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. Discipline is choosing your hard. Because let's be honest, everything in life is hard. Being overweight is hard. Being fit is hard. Being broke is hard. Being financially secure is hard. Having unfulfilling relationships is hard. Cultivating deep connections is hard. Everything is hard. But you get to choose your hard. And the hard truth. Most people choose the path that's hard now and hard later, rather than the path that's hard now, but easier later. They choose the momentary comfort that creates long-term pain rather than the momentary discomfort that creates long-term freedom. What about you? Which heart are you choosing? I've spent decades studying the differences between those who achieve extraordinary results and those who remain stuck in the quicksand of mediocrity. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the gap isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't resources. The gap is in how they think about themselves and what's possible for their lives. The gap is in the standards they set. The gap is in the questions they ask themselves daily. Average people ask, how can I get through this day? Extraordinary people ask, how can I use this day to move closer to my vision? Average people ask, why is this happening to me? Extraordinary people ask, what is this trying to teach me? Average people ask, what's the least I can do? Extraordinary people ask, what's the most I can become? The questions you habitually ask yourself determine the person you become. They shape your perceptions, your decisions, and ultimately, your destiny. So let me ask you, what questions are running your life right now? Here's something few people understand about success. Success leaves clues. The extraordinary achievers in every field aren't operating on privileged information. They're not blessed with superhuman abilities. They've simply discovered, applied, and refined fundamental principles that work. The first principle is this: you must take full, complete, and total responsibility for everything in your life, everything. Your health, your relationships, your finances, your emotions, your career, all of it. This isn't popular advice. We live in a culture that celebrates victimhood, that encourages blame, that offers 1,000 excuses for why you haven't yet become what you're capable of becoming. But the very moment, you shift from an external locus of control to an internal one, everything changes. When you truly deeply accept that you are the author of your life story, you suddenly realize you can write the next chapter any way you choose. This isn't positive thinking. This is accurate thinking. This is seeing reality as it actually is, not as you wish it were or fear it might. The second principle is equally important. You must invest in yourself relentlessly. Your greatest asset isn't your house, your car, or your retirement account. Your greatest asset is your mind and your capacity to grow. Most people will spend $30,000 on a car without blinking, but hesitate to spend $300 on a course that could transform their thinking. They'll spend 20 hours a week watching television, but can't find 20 minutes a day to read something that elevates their understanding. They'll dedicate years to a career they dislike, but won't dedicate a weekend to discovering what they truly... How are you investing in yourself? What books are you reading? What skills are you developing? What conversations are you having? What ideas are you exploring? What limits are you pushing? The quality of your life will never exceed the quality of your personal growth. Never. It's a law as predictable as gravity. The third principle cuts to the cause. You must align your daily actions with your highest values. Many people can tell you what they value: a family, health, freedom, contribution. But if you followed them around for a week, their calendar and their bank statement would tell a very different story. There's a word for this misalignment between what we say matters and how we actually live. That word is suffering. All suffering comes from this gap between our values and our behaviors. If you value health, but live on fast food, no exercise, you will suffer. If you value authentic connection, but spend your evenings scrolling through social media, you will suffer. If you value growth but consume mindless entertainment instead of educational content, you will suffer. If you value financial security but spend more than you earn, you will suffer. The antidote to this suffering isn't changing your values. It's changing your behaviors to align with them. It's closing the gap between what you say matters and what you actually do. But this brings us to a fundamental question. Why don't we do what we know we should do? Why do we sabotage our own success? Why do we repeat patterns that keep us stuck? The answer lies in how we see ourselves. Your self-image, the identity you've constructed about who you are and what you're capable of, is the invisible governor of your potential. You will never outperform your self-image. Never. You will find a way, consciously or unconsciously, to remain consistent with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who tries diets but never sticks with them, guess what will happen when you try another diet? If you see yourself as someone who isn't good with money, guess what financial decisions you'll make? If you see yourself as someone who always ends up in bad relationships, guess what patterns you'll repeat? This is why so many people can achieve temporary results but can't sustain them. Their actions have changed, but their identity hasn't. And identity always wins. The good news? Your identity isn't fixed. It's created, it's learned. And anything that's learned can be unlearned. Anything that's constructed can be reconstructed. The first step in transforming your identity is becoming aware of the stories you tell yourself. We all have narratives running in our minds about who we are, what we're capable of, and what's possible for us. Most of these stories were written by other people, parents, teachers, peers, society, or by our own misinterpretations of past experiences. What stories are you telling yourself? Complete these sentences honestly. I'm the kind of person who, I could never, I always, people like me, don't. Your answers reveal the invisible boundaries you've placed on your life. But here's the liberating truth. These boundaries exist only in your mind. They feel real, but they're not. They're constructs, and you can deconstruct them. The second step is making a conscious decision about who you want to become. Not just what you want to achieve or have, but who you want to be. This is the most powerful creative act you'll ever engage in. You are deciding on purpose who you will become rather than letting circumstances and other people decide for you. Who do you want to be? What qualities do you want to embody? What contribution do you want to make? What legacy do you want to leave? These aren't lightweight questions. These are the questions that, when answered deliberately, set a new standard for your life. They create a North Star that guides every decision, every action, every reaction. The third step is acting in alignment with this new identity before you feel ready, before you see evidence, before you get validation. This is the courage part of the equation. This is where you must be willing to feel uncomfortable, to risk being wrong, to face potential failure. Most people wait to feel different before they act different. But that's backward. You must act different to feel different. You must behave your way into a new way of thinking, not think your way into a new way of behaving. If you want to be confident, act confidently. If you want to be disciplined, act with discipline. If you want it to be generous, act with generosity. If you want to be successful, act as if success is inevitable. Does this feel fake at first? Absolutely. Every new behavior feels unnatural until it becomes habitual. But here's what most people miss. Acting as if isn't about pretending. It's about practicing. It's about building new neural pathways. It's about becoming through doing. The fourth step, and this is where most transformation attempts fail, is surrounding yourself with people who reflect your desired identity, not your current one. You will inevitably become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their beliefs become your beliefs. Their standards become your standards. Their expectations become your expectations. Look around you right now. Who are spending your precious time with? What conversations are you having regularly? What behaviors are being normalized in your environment? What dreams are being encouraged or discouraged? If the people closest to you aren't pulling you up, they're pulling you down. There is no neutral influence. None. I've met countless individuals with tremendous potential who remain trapped in mediocrity because they fear outgrowing their circle. They dim their light to make others comfortable. They downplay their ambitions to avoid making waves. They settle for less than they're capable of because excellence would disrupt the equilibrium of their relationships. Are you doing this? Are you compromising your greatness to maintain relationships with people who are comfortable with average? This isn't about abandoning people you care about. It's about being honest about the influence they have on your standards, your beliefs, and your actions. It's about making conscious choices about who you allow to shape your thinking rather than accepting your environment by default. The fifth step in this identity transformation is perhaps the most challenging. You must be willing to fail. Not just accept failure as a possibility, but embrace it as an essential part of your growth. Most people's lives are governed by fear of failure. They avoid risks. They stick with what's familiar. They choose safety over possibility. And in doing so, they fail by default. They fail to become what they're capable of becoming. They fail to fulfill their potential. They fail to truly live. But here's what I've discovered after decades of studying success. Failure isn't fatal. Failure isn't final. Failure isn't even failure. It's feedback. It's data. It's information that, when properly interpreted, brings you closer to success. The most successful people in every field aren't those who avoid failure. They're those who fail more frequently, more intelligently, and more constructively than everyone else. They extract the lesson, refine their approach, and try again with new knowledge. They understand that temporary defeat is not permanent failure unless you accept it as such. When was the last time you failed at something meaningful? When was the last time you stretched beyond your comfort zone, risked disappointment, opened yourself to criticism. If it's been a while, you're not playing a big enough game, you're choosing the illusion of safety over the reality of growth. The sixth step, and this is where the extraordinary separate themselves from the merely successful, is practicing radical consistency. Not perfection, not intensity, consistency. Most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of daily, focused effort. They're drawn to dramatic transformations, overnight successes, and quantum leaps. But the truth, real lasting success is boring. It's unsexy. It's showing up day after day after day, doing the right things repeatedly until they compound. Small, consistent actions don't feel significant in the moment. Reading 10 pages of a transformative book doesn't feel life-changing today. Saving a small percentage of your income doesn't feel wealth-building today. Spending 20 minutes in meaningful conversation with someone you love doesn't feel relationship-transforming today. Doing a few minutes of exercise doesn't feel health-creating today. But these small actions, these tiny choices, when accumulated over time, are precisely what create extraordinary lives. They're the difference between who you are now and who you're capable of becoming. Are you consistent? Are you showing up daily for the person you've decided to become? Or are you still waiting for inspiration, for the right time, for permission? Success isn't about grand gestures. It's about unglamorous consistency. It's about those private moments when no one is watching and you choose alignment with your highest self over immediate comfort. Those moments define you. Now let's address the greatest obstacle you'll face on this journey. Resistance, both internal and external. Internal resistance shows up as fear, doubt, and rationalization. It's the voice that says you're not ready. Who are you to think you can do this? You've failed before. You'll fail again. It's the part of you that prefers the comfort of known limitations over the uncertainty of new possibilities. This voice isn't your enemy. It's a primitive part of your brain trying to keep you safe. But in today's world, safety is often the riskiest strategy. The illusion of security is what keeps people trapped in jobs they hate, relationships that diminish them, and habits that slowly destroy their health and potential. External resistance comes from a society that has a vested interest in your conformity, from friends and family who, often with the best intentions, encourage you to be realistic, don't rock the boat, know your place. It comes from a culture that celebrates overnight success, but devalues the unglamorous work that creates it. Both forms of resistance must be recognized for what they are, tests of your commitment. Not obstacles to be avoided, but challenges to be embraced. Each time you move forward despite resistance, you strengthen your resolve. You prove to yourself that your commitment to growth is stronger than your attachment to comfort. This brings us to a fundamental truth. The quality of your life is determined by how you respond to discomfort, not by how you avoid it, by how you use it. Discomfort is the price of admission to an extraordinary life. The successful don't experience less fear, less doubt, less uncertainty. They've just developed a different relationship with these emotions. They've learned to act in the presence of fear rather than waiting for it to subside. They've discovered that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. When was the last time you deliberately made yourself uncomfortable for the sake of growth? When did you last have a conversation you were avoiding? Attempt something you might fail at, or expose yourself to ideas that challenge your thinking? Comfort is the enemy of growth. Always has been, always will be. If you're comfortable in every area of your life right now, you're not growing. You're stagnating. And what doesn't grow? But transforming your life isn't just about what you do. It's about what you stop doing. It's about what you say no to. It's about what you eliminate. Most people's lives are cluttered with activities, commitments, and relationships that don't serve their highest vision. They say yes to things out of obligation, habit, or fear of missing out. They fill their days with busyness rather than effectiveness. They major in minor things. What about you? What are you currently giving time and energy to that isn't aligned with who you're becoming, what relationships are draining rather than fueling you? What commitments have you outgrown? What habits are keeping you tethered to your past self? Elimination isn't negative, it's essential. Every no to something misaligned is a yes to something aligned. Every distraction you remove creates space for focus. Every toxic relationship you release makes room for nourishing ones. Every outdated commitment, you let go of frees up energy for new growth. The most successful people are ruthlessly protective of their time, their energy, and their focus, not because these resources are scarce, but because they're precious. They understand that what you allow into your life sends a powerful message about what you believe you deserve. What message are you sending yourself right now? This journey of transformation isn't linear. It isn't without setbacks. It isn't always visible to others, but it's the most important work you'll ever do, because when you transform yourself, you transform everything. Your relationships improve not because others change, but because you bring a different energy, a different perspective, a different level of emotional maturity. Your career advances, not just because you gain new skills, but because you develop new ways of thinking, new standards of excellence, new levels of contribution. Your health transforms not just because you change what you eat or how you move, but because you develop a fundamentally different relationship with your body and what it deserves. Everything external flows from internal change. Everything. But here's where many people go wrong. They try to change their lives without changing their beliefs. They try new actions while carrying old thinking. They set new goals while maintaining old identities. And then they wonder why they can't sustain progress. Your beliefs create your reality in two powerful ways. First, they determine what actions you'll take. If you believe success is possible for you, you'll take actions aligned with that belief. If you secretly believe it's not, you'll engage in subtle self-sabotage or simply fail to take the necessary actions consistently. Second, your beliefs determine what you'll notice and what you'll miss. Our brains are bombarded with millions of bits of information every second, but can only process a tiny fraction. What determines which information gets through? Your beliefs. Your brain will selectively find evidence that confirms what you already believe to be true. If you believe opportunities are scarce, you'll notice every closed door and miss the open ones. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll notice every betrayal and dismiss acts of loyalty. If you believe you're not enough, you'll focus on every criticism and discount every compliment. If you believe success is possible, you'll spot openings others miss and learn lessons from situations others call failures. Your beliefs aren't just thoughts. They're the operating system of your life. And like any operating system, they can be upgraded. How? Through conscious choice, through immersion in new environments, through rigorous questioning of assumptions, and most powerfully, through new actions that challenge old beliefs. When you act in ways inconsistent with limiting beliefs, you create cognitive dissonance. Your mind must resolve the conflict between your actions and your beliefs. And often, it's easier to update the belief than to deny the new evidence your actions are creating. This is why action must precede motivation. This is why you must act your way into new thinking rather than think your way into new action. This is why fake it till you make it contains more wisdom than most people realize. You're not faking, you're becoming through deliberate practice. That transformed my own life. Emotions follow behavior, not the other way around. If you wait until you feel motivated to act, you might wait forever. But when you act as if you're motivated, the emotion often follows the behavior. If you want to feel more confident, take actions a confident person would take. If you want to feel more disciplined, make the choices a disciplined person would make. If you want to feel more compassionate, behave in ways a compassionate person would behave. Your brain will work to resolve the dissonance between your self-image and your actions by updating your self-image. This isn't manipulation, it's how neural pathways form and how identities evolve. Now let's address the second greatest obstacle to your transformance, the expectation of linear progress. Most people give up on their goals, their dreams, their evolution because they don't understand the true pattern of growth. Real growth isn't linear. It never has been. It never will be. Real growth follows what scientists call a punctuated equilibrium pattern. Long periods of apparent stagnation followed by sudden breakthroughs. On the surface, it looks like nothing is happening, nothing is changing, and then everything shifts at once. This pattern repeats in nature, in economies, in relationships, in personal development. It's the rule, not the exception, but most people aren't willing to keep going during those plateaus, those desert periods where effort doesn't seem to yield results. They interpret lack of visible progress as failure rather than recognizing it as the necessary incubation period before breakthrough. How many times have you given up on something important just before the breakthrough would have occurred? How many diets have you abandoned? How many business ideas have you shelved? How many relationships have you walked away from? How many skills have you stopped developing because you couldn't see immediate progress? The most successful people in every field share one trait. They're willing to keep going when others quit. Not out of blind stubbornness, but out of deep understanding that breakthroughs require foundation building that isn't always visible. They trust the process. They focus on the leading indicators, the daily actions, the small improvements, the subtle shifts in thinking, rather than obsessing over lagging indicators like visible results. Are you trusting the process in your own growth, or are you still demanding immediate evidence before you'll fully commit? This brings us to a core principle of lasting transformation. You must find joy in the journey, not just the destination. If you can only be happy once you've reached your goal, you've created a recipe for misery. Because the truth is, once you reach any goal worth achieving, you'll immediately set a new one. That's the nature of growth. If your happiness depends on arriving, you'll spend most of your life in frustration. But when you learn to find fulfillment in the process itself, in the daily disciplines, in the small wins, in the lessons extracted from setbacks, in the person you're becoming, you create a sustainable path to both achievement and joy. The best way to ensure you never reach your destination is to make yourself miserable on the path. The best way to ensure you do is to find meaning in each step. This doesn't mean you ignore results. It doesn't mean you pretend setbacks don't matter. It means you develop a more sophisticated relationship with both progress and challenge, seeing them not as endpoints, but as information that refines your approach. Let me tell you about two kinds of pain. There's the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. Every day, you choose which pain you'll carry. Every single day, when you choose the pain of discipline, the discomfort of getting up early, of saying no to instant gratification, of pushing through resistance, of facing fears. You're choosing a weight you can manage, a burden that actually strengthens you as you carry it. But when you avoid that discomfort, when you choose momentary ease over growth, you're not escaping pain. You're just trading it for a heavier version that comes later, the pain of regret, the pain of looking back at opportunities missed, potential unfulfilled, dreams abandoned. Which pain are you choosing today? The extraordinary life, the life that calls to you in quiet moments, isn't found in avoiding discomfort. It's found in embracing the right kinds of discomfort, the growing pains that expand your capacity, your courage and your consciousness. This is the fundamental shift in thinking that separates the exceptional from the ordinary. Discomfort is not something to be avoided, but something to be selected wisely. Not all discomfort leads to growth, but all growth requires discomfort. The question isn't whether you'll experience discomfort. That's guaranteed. The question is whether you'll choose discomfort that serves your evolution or accept the discomfort that comes from staying the same while watching others fulfill their potential. You already know which choice leads where. You've seen both paths play out in your own life and in the lives of others. You've experienced the satisfaction that comes from pushing through resistance and the disappointment that comes from giving into it. So what stops you? What keeps you trapped in? Okay, when extraordinary is within reach? Uppermost, it's simpler, that convince themselves that their circumstances determine their destiny. They believe they're products of their past rather than creators of their future. They attribute others' success to advantages they don't have rather than decisions they haven't made. This belief that your current conditions dictate your possibilities is the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself. It's dangerous because it seems reasonable. It seems prudent. It seems like wisdom rather than what it actually is. A prison built by your own mind. Your circumstances are real. Your limitations are real. Your challenges are real, but they are not final unless you decide they are. They are not definitive unless you accept them as such. They are not permanent unless you stop growing. The defining factor in your life isn't what happens to you. It's how you respond to what happens. It's not the hand you're dealt, but how you play it. It's not your starting point, but the direction you're moving. Are you moving toward growth or away from discomfort? Toward contribution or away from risk? Toward your highest vision or away from potential disappointment? The direction matters more than the distance. The trajectory matters more than the territory. This is why seemingly small decisions matter immensely. Each choice you make is less about that specific situation and more about the direction it points you toward. Each action you take is less about its immediate result and more about the person it's shaping you into, the life you desire. The truly extraordinary life you're capable of creating becomes inevitable when you align your daily actions with your highest aspirations. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, not when you feel inspired, but consistently, especially when it's difficult. This is where character is formed. This is where destiny is determined. This is where average and extraordinary divide. Average sees obstacles and stops. Extraordinary sees obstacles and finds a way through, around, or over them. Average waits for conditions to improve. Extraordinary improves the conditions through persistent action. Average blames circumstances for failures. Extraordinary takes responsibility and adjusts the approach. Average seeks comfort. Extraordinary seeks growth. The question facing you isn't whether you can create an extraordinary life. You can. The question is whether you will make the difficult choices that extraordinary requires. Will you set standards that make others uncomfortable? Will you invest in yourself when the return isn't guaranteed? Till press, will you keep going when progress isn't visible? Will you face the fears that have governed your choices? Will you say no to good to make room for great? Will you release the identity that's keeping you small? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're the decisions that shape destinies. And here's what you must understand. These decisions don't require superhuman willpower. They don't demand rare talent. They don't need perfect conditions. They simply require clarity about what you truly want and courage to take the first step, even when that step feels inadequate compared to the distance you need to travel. Remember this, the path to extraordinary begins with the destruction of okay. It starts when you refuse to settle, when you reject the narrative that your dreams are unrealistic, when you decide that your potential matters more than your comfort. This destruction isn't negative. It's the most positive step you can take, because only by dismantling the limiting beliefs, the self-imposed restrictions, and the artificial barriers you've accepted can you create space for something magnificent to emerge. You are not meant for mediocrity. You are not designed for average. You are not built for okay. You are meant for greatness. Not in some grandiose, ego-driven sense, but in the profound sense of fully expressing your unique gifts, fully developing your potential, fully engaging with the miracle of your existence. This is your birthright. This is your responsibility. This is your opportunity. The moment of transformation isn't some distant event. It isn't contingent on circumstances aligning perfectly. It's available to you now, in this moment, through one decision. The decision to raise your standards and never look back. Destroy the okay you. Become unstoppable. The choice is yours. It always has been.